that you have submitted. Just really quickly, again, I think you're doing excellent work. I just want to make sure that you've got all the information that you can to succeed. Very firstly, I want to make sure that you understand that when you're working as an animator in the industry, it's very important to save your iterations. That way, when your art director comes back and says, I need some changes, here's what I want, you are able to go back to previous iteration with either your keyframes or your keyframes breakdowns or your tweens, and then go in and very quickly make the modification. If you're not saving your work in iterations, it's going to cause you to rework, and that costs your company money. So work smart, save your iterations, and then there won't be any question about how you're going to proceed when you do your work. Also, I will tell you that if you are working in the industry and you submit your final iteration as a baked file prior to review, that will also cause question, and there shouldn't be any question about your skills. Make sure that you are saving your iterations so you don't encounter that. That can be a very devastating thing, especially for someone who is very talented, such as yourself. All right, so we've got 3 animations here to talk about this evening. What I have loaded is the lip sync. Now, this can be really fun to see your character come alive. But what I want to tell you are a couple of things. They're not fatal flaws, but they are going to cause your animations to be, it's going to, well, as an animator, you're going to have difficulty animating with a rig when you shouldn't need to have difficulty. Rigging is a very precise and important methodology, and with more precision you work, the more your animators will love you, the more that you will love you. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is talk you through the requirements for your facial. It's a combo rig. We're combining the bone system with the eye rig and blend shapes. So as we go ahead and take a look at your iteration, there are a couple things that certainly you can improve on, and a few things that aren't working correctly. Those are the more important things. You're always going to be polishing and perfecting your work. However, if it doesn't function properly, that is your first big stumbling block. So let's make sure that your rigging is functioning properly, you're able to set keys properly, and show your skills properly for the course. That's what it's about. You don't have time to perfect in this class, unfortunately, but hopefully with your rig being mastered, then it's going to be easier for you to perfect your animation skills. Alright, so with the bone, I'm going to go ahead and play your animation, and I'll get in front of it. I have your edges, went ahead and applied a different material because he was black unlit coming in. So fun little animation. You get a little quirky there with the facial. I love it. I see the eye rig functioning, and you're having fun with that as your key frame, your keys here. Go ahead and select that so you can see the red ticks, and that's what I'm looking for, are your extreme poses. They're evenly positioned here when you're moving the eyes. If you record somebody doing this move, you're going to note that there are areas of pause. So it's really important to make sure that you are, if you watch the video, typically we use the blink to begin to move the eyes, which then the head follows the eyes. So eyes are very important, especially with head movement. And it's the head movement that I want to see, a recognition of the eyes leading the movement of the head, which leads the movement of the body. Here you have a head-shoulder rig. So if you look at the video provided, what I'm looking for is a solid understanding of the eyes engaging, moving the head. What we have then is a full employment of the 12 principles of animation, and we're talking about the anticipation of the move, which is the blink. Go ahead and anticipate that movement by going back the other direction slightly, which allows you to lead that motion through arc of motion. And then you have a slow in, you have a full velocity into the slow out, cush, and into your next extreme pose. All right, all of that is detailed in the video that's provided to you. Also, you're having some fun, and hopefully you can use this in your cutscene in an extreme close-up, if you can, or close-up, and be able to see that as part of your cutscene. So let's go ahead and continue to talk through that. When I go to my front view, what I can see is that the eye rig is positioned centered on the eyeballs. Very important for solid rigging. That's going to get your eyeballs to look directly into your two rig components here, and then your overall, which drives the two rigs there. The other thing that I had my eye on here, so your eye rig is correct, it looks good. The other thing I had my eye on here is the eyeball. It's a sphere, and the bone that you're using to pivot around is slightly off center. So that's going to affect the animation. What you want to do is make sure that that end effector, that joint, is centered on your eyeball, and of course you're going to want that X to look straight down the same tangent toward your eye rig. When you don't have that, you're going to get some wonkiness in the movement as well. Notice that if you go to component, and on your question mark, if you don't get that, that's behind the little arrow, question mark, right click, make sure that you're ticking on your local rotation axes. Then there's a little bug in 2018 version. In order to get a hold of that, to actually make sure that you're orienting that. Let's go ahead and try that again. You actually have to marquee quite far. It's very strange, actually. You're going to have to marquee away from, come on, your meshes here. What we're trying to do is go to component mode on that little joint. Make sure that your axes are showing. You notice that the X is rotated not directly up, it's kind of off, and it's not forward looking at your bones. This bone leading into that should be nice and straight too. That'll help that. But really what you need is just to get a hold of the axis. Thank you. And a community member actually found that if you marquee out in front of the X, you can actually get a hold of it. Hopefully they're fixing it for our next rev. But then you can actually put on your rotate tool and by hand orient that joint so it's looking straight forward for you. And all of this, of course, before you attach your eyeball to that. All right, that'll get you better orientation on that. Make sure you do both eyes. Alright, so then we've got we'll go back to object mode. We've got the jaw. I don't see any movement on the jaw. You've got movement on the facial muscles. That's your blend shapes in action. But if I take X-ray off, you can see that I don't have any movement in the jaw, and there's no movement in the neck or head either. All of that should come into play for expression when you are doing the facial animations. So I want you to go ahead and show me that you can give your character some expression, some natural movement, as described in the video tutorials provided, and just make sure that your rig is rock solid there. It won't take too much time to go ahead and correct what you need to, and then get a little bit more animation on him. I noticed when I tested the functionality of your jaw joint earlier that you also have some skinning issues. Okay, you need to go ahead and weight that jaw only to your jaw bones so that you can get good deformation. Additionally, let's see if I can hide some of your... when we place these joints, it's critical to get the placement correct too. The axis of the skull is about right between the two ears. So if you're using Human IK or any other rig, that top knot for the spine should be directly between the ears here. That's also going to help make sure that your spine is positioned correctly. I noticed that this head is forward too much. That top knot should align with your world axes. I think we talked about this in a previous feedback session, where your ankles, your hips, and your ears were not positioned where they need to be before you rig them, and that's gonna cause some issues down the road. Hopefully not, but watch for that. You want to make sure that you're getting a solid rig for your keyframe. It's going to be less problematic for your keying, your hand keying, than it is for motion capture. All right, back to this particular bone setup. When you have the knot, excuse me, the top of the spine between the ears, then this entire skull and the jaw will rotate around that correctly and not down here at the mandible. The mandible is part of the jaw. It hinges, the jaw hinges right in front of this ear and down. It's all one big nice solid bone. So dropping that hinge point is really critical. This is the hinge point for your skull. This one comes right up in here. And the hinge point for your jaw is right in front of that. I'll just go ahead and drop in some skeleton so you can see where I'm talking about that here. Alright, so come right up between the ears. Alright, that's your hinge point for your skull. Then if you come out, that's your hinge point for your jaw. Then what I typically do is come down here to the mass of the mandible and then out to the end of the jaw. Alright, and build on that when you're doing your eye rig. Okay, make a small bone. Typically get right parallel with the eye, and then make sure that you're solid. Now you've got two eyes, so step back from there, and you're going to then bring forward for that eye. Okay, of course you got some positioning to do there. Now when you actually come in here to rotate this, it's rotating at the jaw point, and all of these vertices should be weighted to those jaw bones. When you've got it rotating down here, okay, oops, right there, then that's not actually the rotation point of your jaw. It's going to look different. It's going to look odd because we know the jaw to hinge in the in the upper area where your cheekbone and your ear are. All right. With the blend shapes, I think you had some fun there. I'm excited to see there. You did several here. I'm going to go ahead and open those up and do your extreme positions here. All right, you've got Mad. And so if we take a look at Mad, you've got these keyed also, so you've got some additional influences here, which is fine. You've got, go ahead and undo that, Shocked, woo! So you can blend that in with some other positions as well. Smirk is fun. Just a cautionary point about the smirk, the mouth does come up a little bit, but for the most part, the muscle in the mouth will pull that back into the face rather than up so much. So up a little bit, but back more than up. All right, fun smirk, getting just one side for the most part activated. A little asymmetry there is good. Disgust, ooh, that's really nice facial position. I like it. Be careful not to flatten out your polygons there. Once you get a flat area there, it looks less like a form of a muscle and more like a piece of iron, a piece of metal that the light is going to play on like that. So be real careful to make sure that that full round muscle is portraying that particular one instead of pulling just verts down around there. Eyes closed, good. You got a good squinty. Now you can get a solid blink just by pulling, for the most part, the top of the eyelid down, and make sure that all of this in here, which gets into the cheek, is not moving a lot. It all happens more in the top. If you want like a squint, which I think is more of what you have here, it's like a both eyelid, upper and lower, are employed and they're coming together more in the middle, then you're getting a little more movement on the top. But it's a little bit less natural than a simple casual blink of the eyes. So if you have any questions, again, make your own reference. Videotape a friend just casually blinking and play that back in slow motion, and you can see what it is that you need to achieve. All right, very good work so far. So a lot of tips here. I'm mostly interested in getting your rigging fixed, your joint placement corrected, and start using these bones. That's what this is about. They're in there for a purpose as well. Give them purpose in your facial expressions. Please watch the video. There's a lot of additional information there. I've tried to make them short and concise for you. All right, let's go on to your, let's do your run. Okay. All right, these are coming in black. Tells me that there were materials applied to that. So if you have already your material work done, please go ahead and include that. That makes it a little bit easier to take a look at. You put eyelashes on this character. Very interesting. A lot of work there that you've done there. Let's see. He looks good with his eyelashes and eyebrows. The stripping method. Alright, so I'm just going to put a material on so I can see him a little bit better in the recording. Alright, so let's take a look at the movement. In your first iteration, the movement was nice and clean. This one, I think there are too many keys missing, and it looks uneven. The timing is uneven, but let's go ahead and play it so we can talk about it. Okay, check the timing here. I'm not playing every frame. So let's try again. Okay, this looks better than when I was playing it last. I don't know if you can see that, but the timing is just a little bit slower on one side than the other. So what we're going to do here is check and see your keyframes. 6, 12, 24. Right. When you export your animation, just a point of reminder, if I'm sure you already know this, Matthew, you don't want to export your identical frame from your first key. It's going to make it look just a little bit off. I'm playing every frame, so it's going to play every frame and pay less attention to to the time. Alright, so this is looking pretty good. I can't wait to see it with the cloth sim on. There's a little asymmetry, which is terrific with the movement of the arms. You can see it in the front as well as the side. Typically you only see that if the character's carrying something. You want to show that he's weighted on one side. So you have a pack or a satchel on one side that's going to cause him to carry that weight more heavily in one shoulder than the other. Give it a reason. When he's running and he doesn't have a reason for having the weight distributed unevenly, it causes a viewer to question, why is he doing that? And even though it's working fine, that's usually what we look for, is the reason why. Alright, so I think this is going to work for you. Again, I can't wait to get the cloth sim on, so he's working. I don't know if you're going to flap this fullness around here as it catches the volume of the wind, but I think this is going to work for you. Take a look at your curve data. Alright. What's typically expected to see in your curve data when you're building a complex animation such as the run cycle is you won't. I'm not sure yet. I haven't fully analyzed how you're lining these up and getting the moves that you are. But usually we'll see that you're keying all only on very few frames, and then you want to go to key part when you are building in your limbs, your secondary motion. Can you break down? Sometimes you'll get that if you're doing a little bit of additive work on a body part, you're going to see that as a part, and so you're going to get uneven keys through here, and that's usually what you see, rather than them lining up. Alright, go ahead and put that one in your scene, and let's see what you can do with that. Let's go ahead to your fighting move here, your kick. I think this is the one that's that's going to require the most work to get that up to speed. There's a absence in the anticipation. Your feet are traveling, actually floating. You got good strong poses represented here, excellent poses. You got good silhouette in 3D, which is really important for game development. Let's see if we can get some. What you want to make sure is that you're not torquing on your skeleton too much and have it be a paused pose. So what I mean by that is you're picking some really nice strong poses. However, they tell the story with very little happening. Also, you're overextending your rig. You see all the tearing here that's happening. So when you're doing your weight painting, normally what you want to do is do an ROM, range of motion. You're going to get the full range of motion on your character, and make sure that you don't exceed those parameters if you can help it. This character is tearing all through here, so it's overextended. The back is, let's see what you got for bone structure in there. The back is cornering off a little bit, so where's your skeleton? Okay. Alright, so right in here you have a lot of rotation. I see why. You're limited on the bones there. Okay. Well, that's maybe why. Alright, so right in here also you've got an alignment with the hip with this one weight-bearing leg, was partial weight-bearing leg, but it's thrust so far toward the front that it looks like it's just feeling unnatural, almost like a break. The head of the greater trochanter right in there is going to not allow you to line up that much. It's great. This is a nice pose for anticipating movement. But actually that's not what that pose is about when I scrub through your animation. Anticipation is when you thrust your weight the opposite direction in order to then throw yourself in the forward direction in this case, or so that you can get some momentum. Now these moves, I'm sure you're acutely seen a lot of these moves. Normally when you see the flying back kick or a forward, like this is scissoring a little bit, you're going to have some momentum of movement before you kick in. So either he's coming toward his opponent, whirling forward and then going forward and kicking into it. Okay, but the whole, it just feels like the first part of this animation, the anticipation part, is missing. And the reason for that is when you're developing games, take out the anticipation. Sometimes you put it in at the end because you want immediate response out of your controller. So that's a technique. However, what's happening here is that all of the anticipation is taken out. There's no anticipation. It looks like he's floating up and forward. Okay. Also, you've got some inconsistent in-betweens here. I don't know if you can follow that leg down and around, but this is not lining up at all. So your rotation in the hip there, not working for you. Put your ghosting on, or just, scrub back and forth. It's kind of almost like a flipping method. But you want to get that in between correct. That's your foot is falling way down. Here it's tracking because you don't have the keys in there to mess it up. But you hit this one frame, right, smooth until there, and then boom, down, and then boom, back up. So this one has got to go back where it's supposed to be. See if we can get it there. Yeah. It's going to take some for me to follow you on this. I was playing with it yesterday so I could try to get this aligned for you to show you the difference. So this foot now is flowing on a tangent. The rest of him is kind of wonky now, but you can see the flow is better for that leg. He's flowing around. He is adhering to the arc of motion. Okay, so follow that the performer right foot. There's that first one. Now his second one. Now there's a clear in between. Now I have no idea what that's going to look like in another view, but I'm hoping it didn't torque him out completely. Boom. Okay, seems to be flowing a little bit better, but you can see there's a rockiness here, and that only happens when you take, you've got consecutive back-to-back keyframes that weren't, maybe they were established originally as tweens, but this one got out of whack. It got rotated somehow. So if you select these and you go to your animation graph editor, you can more easily see problems like that. And it's called spiking. You got a clear spike here to the opposite side of the world here. There's a spike here that's happening. So if you scrub that, those are the kinds of things we want to avoid as animators, because they cause, some serious problems with data in the game engine as well. Alright, he's a little bit smoother in his rotation there. But again, he just kicks it out, starts to kick it out here. Boom. But all of this, it's going to be a lot smoother if you don't key or tween every little thing. You may see some breakdown keys in here to maintain certain values in the rotation, but not key all at every frame. Okay, you're not going to get your smoothest motion by doing that. And it's a good move. You often find these kinds of more complex moves with limbs, flying off in different directions when you're using mocap to launch from. So animators, sometimes they want to preserve as much of that data as possible, but it really behooves you to know which frames to pull and which frames to leave, because what's happening here is he's getting tangled up in his move here. Alright, so you got a little smoother leg rolling over that way, but watch what happens here. He gets a clear rotation here. Alright, that's not bad when I plug it over. And he's going to kick it through here. But see, then he changes direction almost. Boom. And the head is telling me there's something seriously wrong here. See how you get a bop and up. Okay, so that in midair is almost impossible to do. Okay, so clear through and then pop. What you would have is a few more frames in here normally to see him push back, thrust his upper torso weight back so he can kick forward with his hip. And then you'd see that weight on his pelvis and his foot come around, which it does beautifully, comes around. Then you're going to impact, boom, and you get a little bit of cush out, but there's no slightly beyond that keyframe that helps you to settle that in naturally. Now, this is, as we talked about in the lectures there, this is more of a move that you would find in your animation state machine. It's a playable move. Not what you would find in your cutscene, which is employing more of the proper timing and the 12 principles of animation, and that's why we did that in class, to give you two options, to give you a playable character and the moves associated with him, and understanding that you're going to take out anticipation and limit the amount of push out of response, being able to get to position and then response a little bit quicker. But in the cutscene, go to town to show me the animation skills. Now, we've talked through this, just a few things that I want you to do. You don't have much time left, but what I want you to do is study the weight distribution very carefully on this complex move. You got some tearing. I'm not as interested in that as making sure you get some anticipation in there, and then a thrust of weight distribution. You see, he just sort of floats up into the air here. There's no solid weight distribution that's happening. See if I can get that on here to sort of demonstrate what I mean there. Right here. I'll send this file to you so you can tear it up, reverse engineer it. I want this to be your fix though. You may see this in a little different way. But when you're anticipating a movement that dramatic, you're going to have a lot of weight behind it, a lot of movement. And normally ninja or anyone practicing the Eastern arts, they're going to whirl. They're going to come into that with building momentum and begin that motion that they want to go, which is going to carry them forward into that high kick into their opponent. Okay, he's got no momentum at all. He's coming from a stand up into this move, and then he's going to come down and almost, he kind of settles in. There's nothing carrying him over, and then he's almost pulled back to square one. So it's what I would typically find when I'm seeing an animation manipulated for playable. But what I want you to do is go beyond that for your cutscene. This is a natural move. If you can demonstrate natural movement and weight distribution, then you can go ahead and modify that for game. Alright, so anticipation, what does that look like? Go ahead and pull his... Alright, so I'm going to give myself additional frames out front. What I'm going to do, keying them all here just to stay consistent with what you've got here. Get a feeling for what's going on here. You need to pull back. Pull this character back the opposite way. He's got so much body curl here that we need to feel him moving and curling back. Now this might look ugly, but it's going to give you the feeling that you need to get this guy off the ground. Okay. So if he's whirling in that direction, we need to anticipate him going the opposite direction. He's pinned up all over the place, isn't he? And you may... Okay, no, I don't know if we're gonna... It's gonna get ugly, but just to try to give you an idea. What we want to do is use this weight, and you're fighting your axes at this point. You got 3 axes, and they're trying to... Okay, so Come on. Yes, I guess I'm behaving as expected. Okay. Nope. Alright, well, I have no idea if you could tell from what I'm doing. But what I'm doing is drawing him back from his original pose. And we'll just go ahead and key all on that. I'm still trying to get used to your rig here. So keying back and then punching it forward, but he's got to go back further, much further, to be able to get as much momentum as he needs to get that body mass up and over. And I'm going to make it really dramatic. Okay, so he's anticipating his move, and in order to push that much body weight, he's curling back and up into the move. Now, poor design here. I don't have much time into that pose, but I hope you can gather what I'm trying to give you here. In order to get that character to move the way that you want him to, naturally, you've got to employ the anticipation movement, which is getting as much body mass behind him and throwing it up and around, kicking it out. Okay? All right. Take that from a different view. Of course, I'm not messing with any of his arms or anything like that, but we're just trying to get that anticipation up and around. There's still something really not right about here. You can't, nobody can jump like that. You got to keep that foot planted on the ground, and this is why your key on every frame is not helping you in this case. Let's see what we can do here. That should still be stuck on the ground over there. And these are really difficult to fix because you got so many keys back here now. Coming up and around. Okay, up and around. Okay. Alright. It's now almost midnight, so I'm going to go ahead and try to post these videos for you. Do the very best you can for your portfolio. I hope you're getting out of the feedback that I'm giving you some useful information, and you're able to understand what it is that I'm trying to show you. It's a little more difficult for us, but you've been doing this for years, and so I think that based on what I'm describing to you, you're going to be fine when you get these moves in. Alright, so that said, I'll take another look at your storyboards, see how you're actually using those. Maybe you're going or trying to go from a linear blend of your run cycle into this move. But we'll continue to talk about it, Matthew, and just work together to make it happen. I can see a little foot flip getting into secondary and all of that. But all right, so just the basic premise of throwing your weight, anticipating the movement, and throwing your weight up to try to get some of that move in there. All right, very nice start. Want you to get this move completed. It's very dynamic. It's going to be great in your portfolio. So please give me a ring, call if you need any additional clarification. I'll go ahead and put this in there for you if you'd like it. But again, this is your rig. You understand it more than I do, and you can go ahead and get it Get that weight distribution going on. Get that anticipation in there. Go ahead and fix anything that causes this character to be floating. That knee should lead that motion, right? He's going to kick out with that. It should go immediately into that move. See that knee, you know, really kicking up immediately. Yeah. Okay. All right, Matthew, I will talk to you soon. Very good. Keep going.